Welcome to Overeaters Anonymous podcast number 20. This podcast will focus on individual stories of recovery. Joining us on the phone today from Texas is Kaitlin. Throughout this podcast, we will refer to Overeaters Anonymous as OA. Kaitlin, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Quite welcome. I know from us talking before that you grew up in Kentucky. What was it like growing up there with food addiction?
Well, I started really having a food addiction when I got into high school. I lived in a divorced home, two very, very polar opposite families. One, I lived with my mom, who was very depressed and had Huntington's disease, which is a neurological brain disorder that looks like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and MS. And she had that my entire life, so I really took to food to handle that. I was alone, an only child. A lot of the time she had mental breakdowns where I would just sit in the basement with my food, with my sugar addiction, and, food was the only comfort that I had. And then I had my dad, who lived down the street, who was bachelor, partier, had a whole bunch of girls over all the time, very outgoing, very, very charismatic, great guy, but I didn't quite know how to live in those two completely opposite households, so I had food to deal with that, and I didn't know the concept of food addiction because I have an absolute sugar addiction. I will not touch sugar for the life of me today because I know that once I start, I can't stop. I had a sugar addiction and a food addiction probably since I was in middle school, really started heavily in high school, but I didn't realize I had an eating disorder until I started binging and purging with the bulimia. I had no idea that compulsive overeating was actually an eating disorder in itself.
Okay, it sounds like you definitely use this as a coping mechanism and escape from, the relationship with your family a lot. And it sounds like that you've had more than one problem with food. How did these, various food addictions affect your relationships, not only with your family, but with friends and peers and your school and that type of thing?
Well, God, horribly. I think my messed up relationships with friends and stuff came first before the food addiction did, because I just, you hear over and over that us addicts, we feel like we're the one person that didn't get the manual to life. And that's how I felt all growing up, especially when I got into high school. I mean, I didn't know how to connect to others. I had some traumatic instances that happened in the past that left me terrified of guys. I didn't know how to be around guys. I didn't know how to be around my family. When I became, probably when I was about a junior in high school, I just remember just sitting at a table with a bunch of girls. We were all going out to dinner, and just being paralyzed, being stuck within my own body. Like, the only way I can explain it is like my body was on autopilot. I was kind of going throughout the day doing the motions, but I was stuck within the back of my brain. I couldn't really talk correctly. I started talking slowly, like I couldn't actually get my words out. I stuttered every now and then. I had really bad social anxiety, and that night where I just felt it really heavily, that's when I found laxatives. Compulsive overeating was a little bit easier to get away with in front of other people because I always exercised a lot. I was a little bit overweight, but not too much to where anybody said anything, but once I found bulimia, I just locked the doors to my house, didn't answer phone calls. I stayed upstairs in my room binging and purging. And I finally, found the relief that I was looking for because I couldn't stand the pain of having to be around other people. And plus, I wasn't a drinker. So, that didn't really work for me. I wasn't able to go out to parties and drink and have a good time and stuff. But, locking myself away is the only way that I could get away from the pain.
Can you give examples, further examples on how your eating was out of control and how your eating or your weight affected the way you lived your life?
Absolutely. I mean, when I was a little girl, I knew that I had a problem with sugar. Like my family would say, Kaitlin, stop eating so much sugar, you're going to get diabetes. And I had stashes of it, and I realized that I was always the one continuing to eat the candy, even when my friends were not, even when there was no taste to it. I just continued to eat. I was a very, very, very active child, and I actually, even as a little kid, I would run around, I would binge on candy, and then I would run around my basement saying, I know that I'm not going to get fat. I know how to do this. As a little girl, learning how to manipulate my body and food. And when I got into middle school and high school, that's when puberty started to hit, and I was always thin my entire life. And then all of a sudden, I stopped being as active as I always was, and rather than being the one who everybody teased about being so skinny, and I was called bottomless pit, and that made me feel invincible. That was the one thing that I had over people, was that I ate so much, and I was still one of the skinniest. And that gave me that was part of my self-esteem, because I had very little self-esteem. Once I lost that, Caitlin's the skinny girl that can eat everything, and I started to put on a little bit of weight, and I was just kind of an average weight, and then I got, when my binging got out of control, I remember just food slowly became more and more central to my life, particularly as the pain of high school continued to go on. I would come home after school and just eat tons of food while sitting on the couch and watching television, and I tried to limit my sugar intake, but if I had one cookie, I had it all, and then I had the rest of the stuff in the cupboard. I would restrict for a little bit, but then once I had that one compulsive bite, it was, I just continued to eat.
Was there something that triggered you to finally get you, I guess, to get some help to get to OA?
Yeah, when it was the bulimia that got my parents' attention. I was 17, and when I started binging and purging is when I got help. And honestly, I think part of the bulimia was it was a cry for help. I wanted my dad to pay attention to the fact that my mom, she was getting really bad. She got put into a nursing home. All of a sudden, I had to move out of my house that I was living in, and I was just paralyzed by not knowing how to deal with all these emotions that nobody even told me that my mom had Huntington's until I was like 15. So I had been dealing with this my whole life, but never talking about it. And when my dad found out that I was purging, I got sent to an eating disorder specialist. And I remember the first time when I looked at the wall and it had the spectrum of overeating at one end, anorexia at the other end, and then bulimia in the middle. And I finally felt like, oh my God, other people have this problem. It's not just me. And I still continued to binge and purge after I was seeing an eating disorder specialist. And this was only about 6 months of the bulimia. My dad got me into treatment, and I went to an eating disorder treatment center that was 12-step OA-based. And this was the first time I'd ever been to an Overeaters Anonymous meeting. And the relief that I felt was immense. I didn't really quite believe that I had an eating disorder then. I knew that, I kind of had one, but I didn't think I quite qualified. But this was the first time that I really heard other people tell my story.
I see. So it sounds like you were pretty receptive to your family as far as them saying that you needed help. You at least gave it a go. When you finally admitted that you had a problem, how did your journey go from there?
Once I realized that I have an eating disorder and that there's a solution with it, my recovery path has gone all over the place. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it is, it's been messy. And when I went into treatment for the first time, I was there for about 4 months. And I left without really, without really being ready. Also, I really started getting into the anorexia when I got home. Once I realized that sugar was my trigger food, and I completely cut that out because I wanted recovery really bad. I just didn't really know how to do it. And once I got the binging under control, I still wasn't, I just switched addictions. I didn't really, get into that great of recovery. I switched over to anorexia, and that justified me not going to OA. And I just went to AA, and I completely slid under the radar and got really sick, and I lost a whole bunch of weight, and really, never lost the obsession about food because I wasn't really treating my eating disorder. And then I got to the point where I just wanted to die. I couldn't continue living in the chaos of my mind, the fear of food, the obsession of binging and purging every day. I hadn't actually binged or overate or anything, but I thought about it every day because I was restricting and I was hungry, and I didn't understand it. And I checked myself into an eating disorder week-long program that's 12-step OA based, and they identified, Kaitlin, you're anorexic and you hate your life, not because there's something wrong with you, because you have an eating disorder. And that was such a relief. And this was 2 years later after I'd finally gotten into OA, because I was just I was just going to AA constantly. But then when I heard that, okay, there's a solution, it's the eating disorder, the relief that I felt was amazing. And because of that, I just said, I don't ever want to go to treatment again. I don't want to deal with this eating disorder anymore. I don't want to do it my way, because I've been doing it my way for so long. And I just completely surrendered, and I've been in a halfway house for a year now for my eating disorder, and, I have fought on some things and then surrendered on others, but recovery is not perfect. And but I have felt more relief within this past year than I have since middle school, maybe.
So you say that you're in a halfway house right now. How long have you been abstinent from compulsive eating?
My recovery date is March 15th and of last year. So I've got a little over a year abstinent, and it feels good. I continue to weigh in weekly. I don't look at my weight at all. I have other people who are looking at it and keeping me accountable. That's not to say I haven't struggled on and off, but through the struggle, rather than going back, digressing and going back to my eating disorder, I've learned how to better deal with situations, how to realize, when the food comes up, what else is going on with me. I have gone through, my mom passed away in December, and I always thought that when she passed away, that was when I was going to give myself permission to just kill myself, to let myself die, or, and I haven't felt the need to do that whatsoever, because I have had 12-step support and my sponsor and just really good people in the program who have been close to me, and I've learned how to make friends. I have a best friend today, which for me, that is a huge deal because I couldn't get close to people, and the relationships that I have today are so fulfilling. And I always thought that I was this strong person who didn't feel, who didn't cry, who didn't do all these things. But today I'm embracing the crying. I'm embracing the pain. I'm embracing the anger because I know that there's joy and there's relief and healing and hope and all these other good things on the other side of the feelings that I was ignoring for so long. I've learned that I won't die if I embrace those things.
So you definitely have changed emotionally, physically, and spiritually then.
So much. I had no idea that this way of life was possible. I had no idea that there was so much love in my life. My dad for so long was trying to tell me that he loved me exactly the way that I was, but I could not hear it worth anything because I hated myself so much. Anybody could have told me, Kaitlin, you're beautiful, you're all these good things, but I was never receptive. And today I'm actually believing those things about myself. And I've decided to stay about 15 minutes away from the halfway house that I'm living in because my support is so amazing. I'm going to a college down here. I'm living in a dorm, which I never thought that I would ever be able to do. Excuse me, it's an on-campus apartment. But I'm being around people my own age, which I didn't think I could handle. I've been able to hold down a job, which I didn't think I could ever do. And spiritually, I was agnostic before I came to OA, and I really thought that the 12 steps wasn't going to work for me because I didn't believe in God. I thought it was for a weaker brand of person, and I have realized that it has been a little by slow progression letting God into my life. At first, it was just the fellowship, then a higher power, then it is developed to be more and more personal to me every day. And I really realize, by the grace of my higher power, every day I get a little bit better, and there's my higher power doesn't give me anything that I can't handle with him today.
Kaitlin, in your mind, what is the best gift OA has given to you?
Whew, that's a heavy question. I really think that OA has given me the gift of being able to be a deeper person. Because I always thought I was so shallow before. I thought I had an eating disorder because I just wanted to be skinny. If I was just thinner, if I just looked prettier, then I would be okay. And it's only because my friends are thinner than me. And I was just such a hollow shell of a person before. And there was no God in my life. And today, I had no idea the emotions that I have and the emotions that other people have, and all in all, it's been my relationship with my higher power that the 12 steps has brought.
Now, Kaitlin, you're one of the youngest people that we've interviewed for these podcasts. And there's definitely more people out there that could use the help of OA for their eating disorders and overeating. What would you say to other people in high school and college? What would you say to them as far as advice as getting recovery?
Absolutely. if I were to see another person in high school struggling with an eating disorder, I would say don't judge a book by its cover, because for so long I just thought OA was so boring and just old people, and that I couldn't relate because I wasn't just a compulsive overeater. I was a mixture of a whole lot of other things, and OA has young people in it. You gotta look for them. You gotta stay in it long enough to make those relationships, make those connections. Because of where I'm at, I'm in a setting where there's in the halfway house, I'm surrounded by a bunch of young people with eating disorders. But me and a friend are planning on opening up a meeting in a college area where we can reach more young people, because it's sad how many young people are out there and are not really aware of OA or know that it can really help them. All I can say is don't leave until the miracle happens. Because I've learned how to have fun in OA, and I never had a mother, and I have had these women surround me and comfort me and give me things that I didn't have growing up. Learning how to take care of myself and how to be a woman. And
you had told us before that there was a period where you weren't binging and purging, but that it was on your mind constantly. What is it like now that you've gone past that stage, that you're not constantly thinking about these things? What's it like in your head now?
Still a scary place, but the obsession over food is still there. I'm still kind of a baby in recovery. I've got a year, and I'm doing a whole bunch of new things, but I'm finding that the food took up so much space in my head that I lost any type of creativity that I had. I had no relationships, so I thought about food. I didn't know how to address my feelings, so I thought about food. I used to love art. I stopped doing anything in the realm of art, and all I did was I thought about food. I spent hours in the grocery store looking at calories, and it was scary letting go of the food. And learning how to replace it with other things, because we can't just have that void in our brain. You can't just take the food out and not replace it with anything else. And God has just replaced the food thoughts with thoughts about relationships, friendships, thoughts about what do I want to do? What do I want to study? Do I want to be a neuropsychologist? What are my interests? I'm learning, what my favorite color is, what kind of music I like to listen to, because I was always the chameleon. I did what everybody else wanted to do, and I'm finding out cool things about myself.
Well, Kaitlin, thank you for joining us for this podcast. Thank you for sharing your story. For more information on Overeaters Anonymous, please go to www.oa.org or call the World Service Office in the United States at area code 505-891-2664.